And good evening, alienated parents, alienated grandparents, alienated children, family, friends. We have a special guest tonight here on Let's Talk, Real Talk on parent alienation and family domestic violence. Today, I have an alienated mom who recently has been alienated from her children as she's been going through a divorce since 2019. We have Surinder Kaur
Dhaliwal.
Dhaliwal. Sorry.
It's okay.
Um, welcome to Let's Talk, Real Talk on Parent Alienation. I am so sorry that you're going through all this too, just like everybody that has gone through a divorce or a separation knows exactly where you're coming from and how you feel. And the millions out there worldwide, we are all seeking help. We need to be more vigilant on how our kids are being put through these court processes because they're the ones that are suffering dearly. Suri is from India, who immigrated into the U.S. to California, San Jose in 1979. She was just 3 years old. She now has two alienated boys, one 17 and the other one is 22. The 17-year-old was alienated since he was 13 years old. That's how long you've been going through this. I'm not going to say much, but I want Siri to tell her story on how all this started. I'm sure we're all going to find we're in the same situation as Siri is. Domestic violence plays a huge part. Mental health plays another huge part through all this. And we know our spouses. We know, what we've gone through. So welcome tonight to Let's Talk, Real Talk. And I want you to tell us your story. And let's see what we can do and how we can help out there to get some solutions and get your boys back to you sooner than later, because we don't want them to end up just like what my alienated adult children have become. So welcome, Siri.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for doing this podcast and continuing to bring awareness to this problem. Like you and many other alienated parents, I'm finding this mission to bring awareness to it as a way to stay hopeful and stay moving forward, as opposed to dipping into depression and things. So my divorce actually initially started in 2015, but we tried to make it work. And then by 2019, I had enough, and my mental health affected, and so made the decision to separate and let him know that I'm leaving. And what he put me through after that is memories I try not to focus on too much, because it was really traumatizing. To have this man that I had two children with and had spent 19 years with, and just decided we're toxic for each other, actually tried to have me institutionalized and labeled as gravely disabled. An employee at Facebook for several years, we had owned our own house, trying to just get rid of me, basically. And of course, that would have given him financial control. I was really fortunate to get out of this hospital that he had me locked up in, and be able to leave him. And so on my worst days, that's one of the things I remind myself, is that I wouldn't trade this peace that I have now for anything. So a few months later, all of a sudden I get ex parte notice, and then go through this grueling process where both my kids have to show up and we have to talk to different people. The attorney I hired showed up intoxicated from the weekend, like a residual intoxication. And so I lost custody, and that was devastating. I was a new employee at Google, and now all of a sudden I found myself in, family court and custody, and very stressed out. And so the initial in 2019, the judge had me do 1 year of therapy, do a psychological evaluation. And then after all of that got going, then finally supervised visits where I had to pay someone to come and meet us somewhere. And that itself was frustrating that I couldn't use a family member for free to spend time with my own child that I birthed into this world. And then it was also shameful. You know, there's so much that comes around that. Like, how do you explain to other people why you don't have your child and why you're going through this? And to finally realize it's actually not me. I'm not the problem. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and
And
even after finding, you know, it's so like petty, all of the little things that go on in divorce and the amount of money that goes into each minute talking about petty things. You know, I wanted to have my supervised visits at the San Jose Sikh Gurdwara where, you know, my family and ancestors, you know, like contributed to building this beautiful landmark. And no, I was restricted to the library. And those visits with my son, I made them as meaningful as I could. And, you know, about 30 minutes in the library with a teenager, and he was pretty bored. You know, so we'd go outside and, you know, everything that was reported through the whole first process of getting my son back was flawless in that I am a good, caring mother, and I was there for my son and supportive and loving. And we were due to go to court actually in December, and I had slowly been like gaining more time with my son. And so, you know, had an attorney at the time, and I was hopeful that I would get custody.
mhm.
But I think I probably had a naive expectation that
Why
I would
so?
get, because of what my son did, I think is the reason I did get custody. I think it could have gone differently if he hadn't done what he did. What he did is, so we were due to go to court, I think it was December 16th or 17th, 2019. No, 2020 now. It's 2020. And a week prior to that, he ran away from his dad's house on
Okay.
December 8th. Middle of the night, he packed 2 backpacks, a pocket knife, and walked about over a mile from his dad's place to my place. And I got a message that he had left from the house and this was happening. And so I quickly got in my car, found him a block away, safe, and brought him to my place and started the healing process. And from there, of course, he was going to stay with me until we go to court. They weren't going to force him to go back to his dad. And so when we went to court, I did get 50% custody. What these courts put us through. So, you know, I'm starting a new life and I have a new job at Google. You know, I have a whole future ahead of me. I have a livelihood. I'm independent. I'm single, you know, all of this. But now I also have to add in 1 hour a week of therapy. That's my time. Okay. Because the judge thinks I need therapy. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do it. But the amount of stress that goes on a parent going through this and working at a company like Google or anywhere, you know, trying to like keep a full-time job and then still make time for self-care and other things, and then have to be forced into therapy. And so but I did all the things. And so I got my son back, and the next year and a half was really wonderful. You know, he would spend sometimes 2-3 weeks with me and didn't actually want to go back to his dad sometimes. But again, when he would go back to his dad, he would be scolded for not doing the week on, week off as we're doing. And, you know, then came guilt and things like that. So
it's very important to, you know, that parents keep the time allotted to them so that no conflict is, you know, evident. And that's all it's going to do is just hurt the kids, because that parent's going to punish them, and then the kids don't want to go again.
Yeah.
And so
now, my son was 15, and I actually stood the ground of that. He is old enough to choose, and if he chooses to spend more time with his dad, then I welcome that. But he chose to spend more time with me, and I see why. You know, it's a loving,
of course,
space.
But at the same time, too, conflict happens so that you're ex will bring you back to court saying that you're coaching the child not to come to them. And this is how parent alienation comes into play, where one will blame the other, right?
Yeah.
So it's a tough situation when the children don't want to go. Where in my case, when my daughter ran away 2 months after, I still couldn't get her to come to me because she was 17. And the judge says, what are you fighting for? You can't make her come to you.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
got,
yeah, all the emotions that come along with that, knowing that your child also has false beliefs about you,
yes.
and that, yeah. And again, we want our children to be adults that build strong relationships and know how to mend and heal relationships too. I think that's an important part for all of us. And parental alienation isn't just to like me and you. Our families are affected. You know, so I'll go back to my own father. His father passed away when he was 9, and his mom actually decided to leave, but the family wouldn't let her take my dad with her.
Mm.
And so from a young age, my dad was also alienated from his mom and never got to see her again.
It's a
And
generational curse.
yeah, and now I see that I'm being erased from my son's life and being robbed of like birthdays and Mother's Days and all of these things,
Mm-hmm.
and all the loving memories and photos that come along with these type of celebrations.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the more I dig into it and I meet people, I get inspired that this is a big problem, and it's something that we have to collectively keep bringing awareness to, fearlessly sharing our vulnerable sides of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so emotional.
It
Um,
is.
but what?
When you go to court too, they
Yeah,
tell you not to be emotional, but how do you not
yeah,
be emotional, mom or dad, when they've lost their child?
yeah,
An alienator can, because the alienator is only seeking revenge. The alienator has the child already,
yeah.
whether it's a mom or a
Or dad.
dad, and you
Mhm.
could see the difference in their emotions because they're stone cold. They don't care. They don't care about the children. And
Yeah.
and what kind of relationship is it with you? Like, is it strained? I know it's none of my business, but we need to know. Like, is it strained when you go to court to see him? Like, do you feel any threats or any?
No, actually, I mean, I continue to worry about my son's mental health from all of this and
Mm-hmm.
what that might mean to his future, just seeing how my dad went through this trauma as well.
Right.
Um, One of the things I did on this journey after leaving my husband was coming to a place of forgiveness for anyone that's hurt me, including him.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally did this, that's when I no longer allowed him to have control over me. Um, or anyone else. I basically forgive everyone. I think we have a big problem and a lot of people that need to wake up, including a lot of judges and this judicial system that needs a complete rehaul. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and it's so unfortunate that people are separated for so many years. It is very challenging to walk up to someone, like your own child that you gave birth to. You've been there since birth, and then all of a sudden years have passed by. Like, how do you start that conversation? And even things like that you think about. But then at sometimes you're like, I might not ever get a chance to start that conversation. It might not ever happen. And then you know, one of the things
Yeah.
that have helped me survive the last year and a half without being able to see my son or even contact him, I have a restraining order, so I can't even text him or call him. I actually don't know where they live. My ex could leave the country and not even tell me. Um, One of the things I do is I try not to think about my son. That's how I get through my day. Yeah.
It's hard not to,
Yeah.
because we think when we had our children, we woke up to them every morning to feed them, to get them ready for school. We waited for them to come home from school to feed them again. We tucked them in bed, like, and to have nothing, it's very hard. I mean, it was really hard for me at first, but I was at the same time, I went to jail twice to never see my kids again. You went 4 times. Oh, you also got arrested. Well, you're going to be telling us about that one. But yeah, once I went to jail, it really traumatized me. And I was in a wheelchair. I was disabled. So I couldn't get any lower. Once I came out of jail, I had no home. I had to go to a women's shelter. I was there for 17 months. Well, the judge decided to hold our monies back. The ex got the $1 million home and the 3 kids, that he's healthy. I'm kicked to the curb. So I couldn't get any lower, and I raised myself up. I got healthier fighting for my kids. But then when they turned all 18, and one thing too, parents, never wait till they're just 18. I mean, you got to get them before they're 18, because once they're 18, they start turning and their hormones start raging, and there's no one there to help them. So, yeah, when you're kicked to the curb on false allegations, it makes it harder for us parents to fight for our children, because the judges don't care. They're waiting for us to get arrested on false allegations. So that makes their job easier. And to say, oh, well, you went to jail, you must be bad, right?
Or just the whole psychological part of it, like, oh, you need more therapy, or you need more medications or something, to loop us into this like mess of that they basically created a big business with lots of different people profiting from it. And so, yeah, I do have 2 restraining orders against me, actually.
Wow.
One is from my ex-husband, and it's not even that I tried to see him in person. He just didn't want to text messages anymore and things. And he has included my son on the restraining order, and it was granted. And then the other person that has a restraining order against me is also my former psychiatrist. And she put me through a mental health nightmare, and she's very underqualified for what she's doing. And she actually helped my ex-husband in 2019, despite me having spent about 3 years with her weekly while working at Facebook, often complaining about him and our relationship. She also helped try to get me institutionalized. And so I went to the hospital where she works. She won't have a conversation with me. So I sat there until they arrested me. And then finally, she had to get a restraining order. And that all just because, have a conversation with me, because you guys are all wrong about me. And they don't want to do that. And so going to jail, yeah. So I was arrested there. And then I actually intentionally, on January 13th, 2023, this year, I went to my son's school. And I went inside and I told the person in there, I said, look, I know you have to call the police. Please go ahead and call the police. I'm going to go wait outside. And so I stood outside, and he came out and told me that he's called them and they're going to send someone. I said, okay, I'll be outside. I shook his hand and he went inside. And then 2 officers finally showed up, and I told them, look, I just want a welfare check on my son, and I don't have custody. And I told him my story. And so they arrested me. And so I went peacefully in and was out after a few hours. And from there, I've gone to jail 4 times. And this last time, I actually spent the entire night there. And
Did you?
It was, yeah.
And how did that affect your court case with getting your kids back?
I don't know. I mean, because I don't file any paperwork anymore. I just show up when they have these court dates, and I put on my video, or I show up in person. I'm like, let's talk. And it's usually 2 minutes. And then they're like, okay, we'll see you in 3 months. I'm like, all right, And, the Judge Zucker is very well known now for being biased and for making really poor decisions. And then I have Jessica Huey, who is my ex-husband's attorney, and Heather Allen, who is minors counsel. And I've not had a conversation with Heather Allen, but she sent a bill for a few $1,000s. Like, I'm not sure what the bill is for because I've been just living my life and stuff. And one of the things I also did is after they took my son the second time, and the way it happened was really traumatic as well because it involves family. I quit my job at Google. I was like, this is insanity. If the USA expects me to sit at a computer for 10 hours a day and then pay taxes and then pay for an attorney and then probably have to pay for visits again and all of this again. I said, that's insanity. So I quit my job. And I just went on a journey of spending time at the San Jose Sikh Gurdwara, learning more about Sikh philosophy, meditating, being around my community, serving meals, and just never feeling alone. And so that has really carried me through it. But I've filed no paperwork since my son was taken on May 6th. I let my former attorney go. I told him go manifest from someone else's checking account. And
good for you.
Yeah, and I actually then booked myself first class ticket and went to East Africa for a couple of weeks.
Good for you.
That is money I earned working hard for a long time. And I shouldn't have had to work just to be in court, traumatize my life, my children's life, my family's life. And then at the end of that, get some bill for $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
kind of where I'm at now.
By the time I got divorced, it was 1.2 million. And my children, my youngest was she was 17 at the time, almost 18. And I thought, you know what? I can't afford to keep spending all this money. I had to pay bills. I lost the equity from the home. I mean, it was just horrendous how these court systems literally gouge us to the max. Like, they held my house in trust. The lawyer got the first 15,000 before I stepped into court. The judge says you can't come into court unless you pay the $15,000 retainer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, holy, 15,000. The ex complained I put the kids into boarding school to get the top education in Canada to the top boarding school in Canada. He complained that I spent 35,000 for them to get an education, but it's okay to take me to court and pay these courts phenomenal fees.
Yeah.
I could have put my kids through and another 20 kids into the top school in Canada for a good education for 10 years.
Yeah.
These courts are robbing families blind. They're taking the child's education. They're taking the parents. They're destroying the parents, moms and dads, to the point where they're on their hands and knees crawling to beg. And people wonder why there's so many homeless out there, why there's so much mental illness out there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a comment here from Salvador Sino. And yes, first thing, judges, lawyers, children, aid societies are criminals and should be charged accordingly. End the story. Welcome to ND Holocaust. I'm not sure what ND Holocaust is, but yeah, this new generation of courts, people don't realize what it's like to be in the courts. Some have never in their lives, and God bless you for not being in the court system. But, I've been in the court system since 1984. My ex-husband since 1960. So, once you're dragged into the court system through family courts, you're stuck in there forever. And our children are the ones that are going to be paying the price because it's their children that are going to be dragged through the mud too. I'm fighting for my future grandchildren. And I hope to God that, before my kids have kids, the courts can understand what we are going through to save our kids. We're not doing it because we're vindictive parents or anything, because my kids, 18 years, they're not babies. They're not the children anymore that I last saw, but they don't need to be vile angry, abusive adults.
Yeah, but
Threatening.
that's what this system creates.
Yes.
And
They're threatening
you hear
never that.
horror story after horror story.
It's crazy. But thank you, Salvador, for your comment there. Also, we got uh, Robert there sending us big hugs.
Thank you.
So we are fortunate to have such good support out there.
Mhm.
But what we need to do is get it into the legal court systems.
Yes, and there's got to be a better way to provide children a safe space. And, so as part of this journey, like you, I've become an advocate and a fearless one, showing up at San Jose City Council meetings, telling my story to the mayor and everyone sitting on the council, and not allowing them to silence me.
Mm-hmm.
And they being the judges and everyone else that wants to just hide what they're doing in the courtroom, because the reality of who each of us are outside is very different. When you walk into a courtroom, one, your heart rate is up, and then you're in a situation where you might have one parent who has now fabricated this whole story and stuff to get custody, but now they have to continue to live that lie. They can't change their story now. And yeah, and so there we are. It's like a very messy thing, and I think there is a solution, because I'm a believer in being resilient and believing there are solutions for everything.
Yes.
And definitely for what's happening here. And so part of this journey, I attended several meetings for child abuse prevention with the Santa Clara County, and got to meet several people there and just add some comments and things. And so that's just continued, and I have a really big community here in San Jose. I'm very fortunate for the work my dad, mom, and my grandparents have done, and so I have a lot of people being very supportive of me running for San Jose City Council now.
Nice.
And
Congratulations.
I was like, why not? Again, like any platform where we can continue to advocate for our children, and not just our own biological children, but all of these children that
All
are
children.
impacted, that, and then lives destroyed and everything. And so, in my fact checking, it's like the US has the highest incarceration rate in the world. And so you look at someone like me, and many people that are in family court that end up with restraining orders, and then just because one person doesn't want to talk, and then you end up having conflict or whatever, and it's created conflict. That's parents going into jail and then creating more problems in the future, right? More trauma. And there's a lot of profit on giving people pain and suffering.
There is, and it's adults that are acting like immature children, and most of them have never grown up. They, narcissistic personalities are like a 2-year-old pulling a temper tantrum because he didn't get to take that lollipop that he saw going through the check counter that moment, right? So what do the children do? They pull tantrums, and these people that literally are doing it in the courtrooms, and the judges are watching them act like children.
Yeah.
To get their, and they're giving the kids to these people. That there was a dad that just shot his 3 kids there the other week because he didn't get custody of his kids, and then another dad that shot the judge last week. I mean, these moms that are getting killed, they're finding more women all the time dead after they were separated or divorced, because it doesn't end. I mean, the abuse continues for a lifetime, and it's so sad because a lot of women and men are in fear of their lives. Every time they go out, they have to look over their shoulder. They can't let their guard down. I mean, it's so sad what the court system is doing to people. Mental health is a big issue, which is created through the family court system. It's the only court system that you can go into and lie.
Yeah. And no one's doing any fact checking. No one's
None.
doing any fact checking.
And, you know, the judges are denying cameras in the courtroom.
Mhm.
And this is what we're trying to do, is to get these judges to understand that there's no reason why they can't have a camera in there. What are you hiding?
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the judges that are hiding something. The money, the slip under the robe there, a couple of $100,000 extra to get the kids.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's the most horrifying place to be, but we have to be strong to get in there, to stop this. We have to be thinking of the kids all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's your next step? Like, what do you plan on doing with trying to get your son back?
That reminds me of something. In one of our court dates with Judge Secker and stuff, we show up and nothing really happens, and she ignores everything I say. She said to me, "Don't close the door on your son." And you know what I responded to her? I said, "I've already closed the door," and that's it. And I think that really was important to say, that she's not going to get me to continue to feed into all of this nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
And I do think in some ways, by not fighting in this round in the same way that I did the first round, I might have prevented a lot more trauma for my son in the way of these reunification camps and stuff that are now, a thing of the past. I think maybe I prevented some of that by not putting myself into the position of another big custody battle.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I've given up on him being back with me, and stay hopeful that I will get to see him soon, but also being realistic that we are fighting a big machine, a very profitable one, and there's a lot of people that want to protect themselves.
Yes. Yes.
From being exposed. And so Susan Bassey is someone who I'm very inspired by, and I continue to follow and read the news that she provides. And speaking of other parents, I think I sent it to you as well. This father in Hamburg stopped an airport basically with his child, and they said it was related to a custody issue, which means over 30,000 people that were going to be on flights are impacted by that. And so, I mean, what is going on in the head of that father, right? Like what, and then this judge that was murdered, how do people get driven to a point of such, extreme anger and frustration and stuff that they do things that maybe they normally would not do?
No, obviously they, well, I don't know how he was before. I mean, now they could say whatever they want to say because he's gone, right? Yeah. Unless I'm talking about the other partner. There's a reason why people get divorced, but to blow off on a handle like that and just go and kill someone in their own driveway, that he must have really had the knife put to him. Mm-hmm. I've seen in my career, a lot of abusive soldiers, and the strength when someone gets angry, the adrenaline in them is uncontrollable.
Yeah.
So mental health is it's hard to explain what happens, what triggers people's minds.
Well, so a little bit about that. So I'm actually an expert on mental health, despite people thinking that I have all these disorders or whatever, and my ex-husband actually getting people to believe some of it. I'm an expert on mental health. I learned to really stay present in my breath and in a state of not suffering. Mm-hmm. And then allow myself to feel the suffering that I need to feel so that I cry and I release these emotions and things. And it's so unfortunate because there's so much that we could do differently to provide people the help that they need so that we're not in these situations. And so, yeah, the path I'm going is really focusing things like on intervention and prevention of child abuse. And so the intervention part being like, let's give a scenario where problems can start. A child has an addiction to gaming. There's
Mhm.
arguments at home, homework's not getting done, and then maybe violence or whatever, right? Where do we get in the place where these children are get intervention before there's situations like that, addressing some of the mental health things and physical health things that can really give them their well-being so that they can live joyful lives. And I think none of us came into this world with the expectation that we would be living through what feels like hell. Each of us come into this world with the expectation of being loved, provided for, accepted, and free, and all these things. And when we get to that place, and especially having social freedom and not worrying about all that, we actually can live really joyful lives,
Mhm.
and create joyful memories, and moments that keep us connected to the people that are in our lives. And so I do actually like teach a lot of different things. I'll have intros on neuroscience one-on-one with kids. I'm around a lot of children, and then I'll spend time with sometimes parents, teaching them to understand the development of children from a young age and how they become their personality,
Mhm.
and where you need to intervene when other people are influencing. Like example, little girls often get told they're cute a lot, and that focus on the physical as opposed to their
Inside.
strengths and things. And
Yeah.
so where parents can say, okay, when they see like aunts and grandparents and everyone like, oh, she's so cute, she's so cute, like take a moment to have a conversation with your child and be like, oh, that was really brave that you just did that, to get the child back to being the strength and things that they want to be from the inside out,
Right.
as opposed to the physical part of who we are. And so, yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And this running for city council, I think I can do it.
Oh, I
And
think you can too.
I can do it, definitely. I have a degree in accounting. I worked in venture capital, private equity. I worked about 6 years at Facebook and about 3 years at Google. I
Wow.
built a network of a lot of people, built a lot of relationships, and if that and what my deciding point was, and I wasn't even thinking to run for council. Someone said to me, a lot of your problems will get resolved if you run for city council. I was like, huh, okay,
If it only were
let's
true.
do
But
it.
yes, we need strong constituents like
Yeah.
you. If, going into council, you understand what parent alienation is. There's
Mhm.
a lot of constituents out there that haven't got a clue
Yeah.
on what we are dealing with. So when we go to them on a daily basis, seeking help, telling them our stories, standing out there at podiums, crying our hearts out to help, and yet they just don't get it.
Yeah,
So
it who's responsible and who can make the changes? I mean, where is it going to come from? We have problems right up all the way to the federal level with some of these judges.
yeah, I went
And
I got as high as Karina Gould's office. The next step was Trudeau. We're still trying to get up to his office to change this, because this is getting crazier and crazier. This is our government that's helping family court system to get away with it. And it's a multi-billion dollar, well, $55 billion a year industry on trafficking our children.
yeah.
People don't realize what this really is.
Mhm.
Our children are being flipped over for money for years, for decades, and they're being treated like nothing, like their lives don't matter.
Mhm.
So if we can get into, these offices and run to help educate everybody out there, I think you would be a very powerful tool for us,
Thank you. Thank you.
um, because we are doing the best we can.
Yep.
I do marches with my few groups here in where I am from. I'm from Hamilton, Ontario, so we go to constituent offices in marches twice a month. Well, the weather was nice and stuff, and we've been doing it for years.
Good.
And we get the doors slammed in our face. They know we're coming, but no one's there to answer the door for us. That's sad, because we're there to for the community, yet these constituents are supposed to be there for us. The government is supposed to be there for us. We're not there for them because we don't need the government. We can do things on our own if they were not in the way. So this is how we need to start flipping the wheels and get our politicians to start helping to get to the top.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely have to start holding these judges accountable for their decision making, and that there's fact checking done, and that some of these, not all of them, but a majority of these court cases go one way, and they're in these court systems too long.
Too long.
Yeah.
18 years for me.
Yeah.
I get falsely arrested by my kids and the ex to only be brought back to court 18 years later to say I didn't want anything to do with them. What were they thinking? How could the court system allow this to happen? Do they not go back and say, oh, wait a minute, let's check and see how the divorce went 18 years ago?
Yeah.
But no, let's just keep bringing. Yeah, let's just keep bringing her in, and we're making more money because my trial, if I had lost, it was $175,000. Well, I threw in the towel. I said, you know what? Here's an offer. Take this because I am not going to lose. I saw where it was going. They wanted to put me back into prison for 15 years on 2 counts of child abuse. And I'm thinking, whoa, wait a minute, where's this coming from? So when I put in the offer, they grabbed it. They knew because I brought back the excerpts from 2005 where the judge literally stated to the ex's lawyers saying, well, you're the one that didn't want her to go to the house. And he said, yeah. Well, you didn't want her to see the kids. And he says, yeah. Well, isn't that parent alienation from a lawyer's point of view? Like, isn't that what I'm fighting for from the ex? But yet a lawyer stands in the way of my children. Yeah. So, the court system has to go back and see how these lawyers treated the other parent over the time.
I think it's all now seems to be really out there, and it's just really a matter of, getting the support from politicians that say, okay, now we see it. And so to see a reality of it is what my hope is. And so by attending Santa Clara County meetings and stuff and fearlessly standing up, I think, is my part that I'm trying to do as well. And so in that I've been fortunate to now start having conversations with other politicians. And I haven't specifically talked about parent alienation on a one-on-one, but I continue to speak at the meetings whenever there's free forum to share. Like, I don't have my son right now, so I have nothing else to do but find things to do with my time and not get bored. And so I keep showing up there. And I'm hopeful in that. Like, someone recently said to me, a relative, because every time you try to explain to someone why you don't have your child, that in itself is very awkward.
Yes.
Because there's all this this person's going to perceive things, they're going to judge and this and that, and they're not going to really fully understand the problem. Instead, they're and I've had people tell me, oh, just take medications or just get the prescriptions and don't eat them. And I'm like, I'm not putting all these things on my list that I have all these disorders and then my child's going to think they have them. This is ridiculous.
Yes. They'll use it against you.
Yeah. And, I've had people just say this is really big and, you're probably not going to win and you don't want you to be disappointed. And I think about that when I think about people like yourself who have been doing this for a long time. And is it possible that I can, in 18 years, be sitting in your seat and still trying to advocate and nothing has changed? It's possible.
It's possible, but I'm hoping not.
But I see it as your 18 years and time committed to this cause is has gotten the ball rolling kind of thing and stuff. And then
It has.
Susan Dassey, who's now got, some views on her videos that are reaching like 85,000 people. And of those 85,000, maybe we've reached 500 politicians. Maybe they've watched it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're seeing that this is dehumanizing
Yes.
it
Yes.
for parents. And there's this thing of, if you've heard of it, it's called the pain body, going back to mental health.
Mm-hmm.
To be stripped of being able to hug our children, to spend time with them, and these things and stuff creates more and more pain in our body. And so on a daily basis, many of us are getting up trying to find a reason to keep moving forward, and then also not keep ruminating on all these facts, because when you're in this court system, you're constantly running the facts through your head. And then you're like kind of stuck in this cycle of like, you have a moment, you're like, is this reality? Is this madness? Because sometimes you're not sure. You're like, because it makes no
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and that's the problem. But if you always look at the place of like, so in Sikh philosophy, one of the things that we practice in our daily prayers is that we should earn an honest living.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think that on a daily basis, we remember to question ourselves when we choose to run a business or create an income or livelihood for ourselves. And so, when you look at these judges, they're not making their decision based on what's best for children. They're
No.
always making it what's best for their
Own
bottom
good.
line on dollars.
Their
And
pockets.
then they have the sheriffs protecting their restraining orders. And at the end of the day, people should care, because that's taxpayers' dollars. To
Yes.
put me in jail 4 times,
I
all
know.
of that's taxpayers' dollars. For me to
That's
show up in court, it's
and
taxpayers'
me
dollars.
twice. So that's 6
Yeah.
of us. It's 6 times
Yeah.
us now. Just you and me. I mean,
Yeah.
what a waste of money.
It is an absolute waste of people's taxpayers' money. And then you have
It's
all these other problems with now unhoused people, mental health crisis, financial crisis now, and just feeding right into it. And one of the things I'm planning to use for my campaign is nothing changes if nothing changes, and it's time for change.
it's time for change, and it's one of the reasons why I do this podcast. And I'm so grateful that you're out here to share your story, Suri. I've had multiple amazing guests, professionals come out, doctors, lawyers, therapists that are here for us alienated parents. I even had Professor Sam Vaknin. He's a top psychologist, and he has literally, with no children, pinned the fact of alienation is real, and people just don't get it. I mean, if a man that has no children knows what we are talking about, what we feel, and that's what it takes, somebody with empathy and compassion to feel what we feel in order to know the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
They need to understand. So these therapists that are coming out are, I hope that they are teaching these new young therapists on what parent alienation really is, and that it's not junk science, because that's what they're out there to say. But I have, for parents out there, on the 19th, Edward Crook coming out to Let's Talk on shared parenting. He's from Vancouver, Canada, British Columbia. So I was 2 years in the making trying to get him to come on to the show.
Wonderful.
So I'm quite happy that he's coming out. But I've had like phenomenal people, even Charlie McCready is, huge out there advocating. He was also an alienated dad, and he's still going strong. His children are older, but he's there to help the next kids that are like tomorrow's divorce cases.
Mhm.
Children should not be in divorce cases. And we got, Dr. Lynn Steinberg. She comes on our show quite often. And I'm so happy that, I get to have these kind of people, and Marianne Petrie, dismantling the corrupt court system. I mean, she's doing her podcasts out there as well. And it's just so much heart and soul. Yet my ex-husband, 64 years alienated. The court system has been playing his family for all those years to
Mhm.
suck him into doing it to me
Yeah.
and my children.
A cycle.
It's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. It's a huge pandemic out there. And, these specialists that are trying their darndest
Mhm.
to get through to the court systems, but I know they see it. I know they see it. It's all about the money. That's why they don't want cameras in court.
Mhm.
And this is why we are struggling, and parents are committing suicide. Children are committing suicide, murder, suicide, school shootings, all because they had no parent there to help them get through. One of the most difficult times is the teenage times.
Yeah.
Their hormones are raging. Who do they turn to? To the person that stripped them of their loving parent, that don't care about them now? Go out and drink. Go have this. Go have that. Because that's all they are. That's all they take our kids for, so that they can become party animals with their kids. It's what I see out there is it's insane on how some of these parents that do get the kids that don't care about them at all.
Yeah.
Especially young girls, when they're taken away from a mom and they don't get to, like, my own daughters were taken from me. They were 15 and 17. They needed me. And yet the dad took them. And then they became alcoholics, drug addicts, crying sexual abuse at 15, 17. It was horrible. It broke my heart.
Yeah.
But we're getting close to the hour here, and I'm going to get you to say your last words out there for parents out there, alienated moms, dads, grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
What's your last word of advice for them if they're going through this today?
One is definitely to follow all of these different groups, including yours, Susan Bassey, and others that are reporting on this, because that's an important part of not feeling alone in this journey. Because, I was a parent who went through it the first time and didn't know that I was alone in this, and that it was already kind of planned out what was going to happen before it happened. And now I have so much more awareness. So that's really, I think, important, because that helps with the mental health and portion of it, and the emotional side of having to go through all of this, and the separation from our children and robbing of the time that we have with them. That's, I think, one of the key things I want everyone to know, because I don't want anyone to feel alone. For all of us that have at some point felt alone in it, now we know better. And
yes.
The other thing is that, remember, it is them, not us. They are the problem, and they
That's right.
The judges, attorneys, and this system that is set up just to profit off of child trafficking. And that's a very powerful word, trafficking. And so when we use it, sometimes people think, they hear it and they're like, oh, they're just over exaggerating. But the math shows that that is exactly what is happening.
Exactly. They're profiting $350,000 a year per child in our family court system. And if people don't believe that, I urge you to go out and see what these courts are doing to our kids. They're being used in abundances. I mean, daily. The courts are just cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So we got Kevin Premier. Sorry. Keep fighting this corruption and stand up for your rights and hold these people accountable and transparency. Thanks for that, Kevin.
Thank you.
We're doing our best to stand up for our children, and God help us if we give up, because if we give up, that means
we cannot.
Yeah, we can't, because then that's what they want us to do, is give up, so that they can sweep it under the table or the carpet and no one will know. And again, someone else will have to do the 10-12 year work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
so we've got
exactly.
to keep.
And you have put in so much. And so, each of us has the capability of turning from this being victimized to being survivors, and still finding joy in our life, even without our children with us. But knowing that we are going to help serve a bigger purpose of getting more transparency. And once we have transparency, it's going to really change things.
It's going to.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, Suri.
Thank you
so much.
Yes.
I really enjoyed your time here. We've learned a lot through you, and your strength is amazing. Your vitality you're so positive, and your boys deserve you in their lives. And I think that if parents can reach out to you, I'm sure you could help a lot.
Absolutely. Even if it's just to listen for a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes. And I would love to have you back
Thank you.
on maybe in the new year, and you could tell us when you become one of the constituents out there.
Yeah, voting will be in March, and
March.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share a little bit more details on my personal case in this whole thing. The way I see it, the two people that tried to institutionalize me and have me labeled as gravely disabled are the two people that are using the court system to keep me from communicating with them.
Right.
I was trying to run away from them. And now, ironically, they're the ones that are continuing to make my life very miserable and very difficult and very challenging. But I will continue to be resilient and rise above it, and reach out to people like you to keep me from knowing that I'm not alone in this.
You're not alone. And when I was alienated 18 years ago, I thought for sure I was alone, and I knew what I was dealing with, and I told the judge about it, but he looked at me as if I was an alien, and that he just didn't get it. But you know what? They did get it, because I learned from the best. He was the master manipulator, and I knew what he went through without a father, and that's why I had to marry him, to teach him how to love. And it didn't work. You can't teach a narcissist how to love, because they don't want to love. They just want the sex supply, the services, and the safety. Mm-hmm. And once you take away two of those from them, you're no good anymore. Mm-hmm. So when I told that to the judge, that, he only, because I became disabled, he wanted a healthy wife, but I was fighting to be a healthy wife. I fell on the floor, I got up. Yeah. I fell out, one day I fell, I reached up for his hand, and it's where it was the end of our marriage. And I knew when I fell and I reached up to him to grab his hand, and he kicked me and said, "Get up, you effing crippled." I knew it was over. Yeah. And within a week I went to jail, because you can't take back those words. Right? Yeah. So that.
So mine, in 2019, I was really actually fortunate. I randomly met another man. But I had also gotten off of these antidepressants and stuff. And mm-hmm. I told my husband at the time, I said, "You know what? I signed up for a retreat in not too far from here, and it's at a Buddhist temple." Mm-hmm. And he said to me, "If you go, I'm going to divorce you."
Oh.
And, you sharing that moment when you had that realization, that was that moment of, wow, this man actually doesn't care about my mental health at all.
At all.
At all.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the journey of starting to care about my mental health and also advocate for mine. It is very challenging when people are telling you, oh, we think you need help and you should do therapy and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? Enough.
Enough.
I need therapy. I will do my meditations. I will take walks. I will go bird watching. And I will do all the things that I can do to make sure I feel good in my body and healthy, and be able to be social and have connections with people and still create a loving life and a joyful life despite all of that, all of this that is happening.
Yes. Good
Yeah.
for you. Very proud of you.
I have gone on many, many retreats since that moment that he said that.
Uh-huh.
And they have helped me to really, really heal all my past trauma from even before that I got married, from before marriage, from my childhood and stuff. And I healed it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep doing that. And I'm going to help as many people as I can and use every platform. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what got me through the 29 years I was with him, that, I always went and got help.
Yeah.
Every time he said, oh, they're quacks, I went and saw the quack. I put on my raincoats and my rubber boots and off I went. I got help. But you know what? He didn't get help.
No.
And I think that was the issue there, that, the military wouldn't allow them to cry mental health issues because they'd be taken and categorized and kicked out of the army. So they would lose everything, right? So the military needs to change their way, because a lot of these alienated children run to the Army, Navy, and the Air Force because they can't cope with what's going on at home. And I have 2 generations to prove it, because my ex-husband ran away from his mom and his stepfather at 19 to join the Army at 21. And my son, after the judge allowed him to stay with his father at 18, he ran away to the Navy 6 months later because he couldn't handle the conflict with his 2 sisters, his 2 younger sisters. And that they put the pressure on him, and then they used the trauma to use against me.
Yeah.
And that was so wrong, because now all the kids are suffering.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have that mom to help them.
And
yes,
we do see, actually, I've seen reports that there is an issue with mental health and suicides in the services, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these young people are going in, and I think now with social media and what we have available to us, it's much harder for people to hide the true reasons behind conflicts.
That's right. I was a 911 operator for the military police, and I took the calls. I was the first person they saw when they walked in to the office drunk, because they couldn't handle living out there by themselves. These young soldiers, they had nobody. So they would come in and chit chat with me, and I helped a lot. I helped a lot of families in the military, even on my days off, because everybody knew that I had a pretty strong head. I didn't drink. I didn't do alcohol. I raised 3 children. Well, 4. I lost my first, but I raised 4 children on my own. And while I was on maternity leave, I took in other people's children, the soldiers' children, because they had no babysitter. So they all put their trust in me, and only to end up losing my own kids through a mentally deranged I don't want to categorize him on social media, but yes, I mean, he just couldn't handle the mental stress that he was not being able to get help for.
Yeah. And you said an important word there, trust.
Yes.
And when a relationship lacks trust from both sides, then there's no foundation for that relationship to last.
No.
And I think that was another initial point when we tried therapy after the first time we were going to separate, talking to a psychiatrist. And when trust came up, it was very uncomfortable for him.
Yes.
And,
yeah, I could see it too. And my ex was the same thing. I couldn't trust him. He drank. He was on steroids. He was buff all the time. And, mix alcohol and steroids, it's not a good combination. They become violent, aggressive. And dealing with that on a daily basis for the first, 7 years was very difficult. And I was just a young girl myself at that time.
Yeah.
And I was going to AA meetings to deal with a husband, and I'm only 23 years old. I didn't know what I was dealing with, and the YMCA got me involved to get help. And I thought that was pretty cool. I was just going one day for racquetball, and someone overheard someone else talk about alcohol, and they says, "Hey, isn't your husband an alcoholic?" And I, wow, word
Oh,
gets out fast.
yeah. Well,
But
alcoholism is when someone has an alcohol problem, it's very hard to hide something like that because they don't have control of their emotions.
no, they
And,
don't.
and if you don't have control of your emotions and thoughts, then you're not going to have full control of your behavior.
Well, that's what happens when they get drunk. The truth comes out of them, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And the pain too. And so that's the part about, my ex-husband, his drug was just being busy and working all the time. And in that, our life became just more and more alienated already with that relationship.
Yeah.
But again, I wouldn't trade this piece that I have now for anything in the world. Never,
Yeah.
never. And I'm going to plan my next retreat.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna,
I just want to say how I healed through my course was I picked up a saxophone, and I was raising awareness for the last 14 years playing it.
nice.
My ex-husband didn't like it. He saw me playing it on TV one night, Christmas Eve, raising awareness for domestic violence and parent alienation. Didn't I get taken to court for it? So it was in the trial. I got pictures. He took pictures off of screenshots from my Facebook with me playing the horn. And I thought, you should be proud. The kids should be proud of me for that. But no, they made it sound bad because I was living my life.
Yeah. Well, that's what narcissistic people do is they destroy the joy that you bring into your life.
Mm-hmm.
You
They
find
do.
something music is joyful and you learn something new, you should be proud of yourself and have all of these wonderful things and stuff. Instead, they want to take that joy from you so that, maybe even picking up saxophone becomes a trigger.
Yeah.
And so that's where I've learned that there is nothing outside of me that's going to trigger me.
No.
I'm
No.
I'm trigger proof now.
Yeah.
And another thing that I think about, are we almost done here? Or yeah.
Yep, pretty soon. I just want to read one more comment from Kevin. He says, I'm an alienated. I've been dealing with parent alienation currently, and you have options and resources, but don't give up and keep fighting. I'll help who I can at fighting this government in my time to keep me busy. Thanks, Kevin. We need you out there. We need many more of you out there to get to our constituents in our government office, because it's a war on our children. It's got to stop.
It has to.
Yeah. So I'm going to end this now. Don't jump off, Siri. I just want to say goodnight to all the alienated parents, grandparents, alienated children out there. Thank you for tuning in. And if anybody wants to join me here on Let's Talk Real Talk on Parent Alienation, and whether you're a professional or not, you want to share your story, please send me a message or email me at Mary_Kovacs at hotmail.com. And Siri, can you give us your email there for?
Yeah. It's SURI dot D as in David, HALIWAL, the number 1 at gmail.com.
Okay. DHAL WAL at Gmail.
Number 1 and then at Gmail.
Oh, okay. Hold on. 1 at gmail.com. So there you have it, everyone. If you want to get a hold of Siri or myself, it would be a pleasure to help you to get through all this. Your pain is our pain, and we are here to help end this. So again, thank you everybody out there, and tune in on Tuesday. We have Joan Kloss-Zannert at 1 p.m. Joan has been on our podcast now a few times, and she is, I believe, in California or Florida, but I'm so sorry I didn't do my homework here on that one. But tune in on Tuesday. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. That's the 14th. Joan will be coming. Let's see. Who do we have? We have Penny Fisher coming on next Sunday on the 12th. Sorry. So yes, it's Penny that's coming next week. I've got so many guests. Wow.
And that's wonderful. Let's keep having these conversations, keep sharing the posts on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and everywhere we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Because, you know, the word is out there. And what we need to do is just get these courts to understand that we're not taking this anymore, laying down.
Absolutely.
The future of our children, the generations to come is important.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Siri.
Thank you, Mary, for having me.
You're welcome. And we'll get you back after the new year, okay? And good luck with all your endeavors out there. We really appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. And you as well.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Good night. And thank you for joining in on Let's Talk, Real Talk on Parental Alienation and Family Domestic Violence. Please stay out of the family court system, because your children, if you have children, they don't deserve to be part of it. So good night, everyone.
Good night.